Welcome, Professor M. Rawani.
Yeah, very good morning. Thank you.
Sir. Namaskar, sir. Welcome, Dr. Sarabjot, sir. Welcome to the World Education Summit. Namaskar, sir.
Thank you.
So, one more speaker. I think Professor Dr. Krishna Mohan, sir, can you put on your camera?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Thanks, sir. Thanks for joining. So, SS Mantha, sir, is also joining in between. So, we are already on the live right now. So, I request all the panelists to put on your camera so that everybody will be on the same screen.
Yeah, problem is there might be some issues, so that's why we just switch on.
We are able to clear, sir. Okay.
What about Professor Murthy? Is he not joining?
So Professor Murthy is not joining, sir. So
he's not joining. Okay.
Krishna Mohan sir is joining, sir.
Oh,
from the IT
okay, great.
And SS Mantha sir is also joining, sir, within 1 or 2 minutes. So I request all the delegates to, once Mantha sir will be joining, we will start this session, and Dr. Sarabjot Singh Anand will moderate this session, and this session will be of 1 hour, and it will be of the discussion on the basic future trends and the technologies aspect in the higher education and the best practice scenarios that to be attended in the higher education for the learning based outcomes. So with respect, Dr. Sarabjot sir, can we start this session? SS Mantha can join in between.
Sure, we can do that.
So I welcome all the audience from the Pan India and from the foreign countries also to the 18th World Education Summit 2021. We are live on the 3rd of March, and our first panel discussion on the day 1, that is reimagining Indian higher education, scope of automation and opportunities, is one of the most important topic right now in the higher education space, as we are living in the world of technologies and the new era of the digitization. So we have the esteemed panelists from the higher education. So I would like to welcome Dr. Sarabjot Singh Anand, Director, School of Engineering and Technology, BML Munjal University, Gurugram. Welcome, Dr. Sarabjot Singh. Welcome to the 18th World Education Summit, and he will moderate this session. And I would like to welcome Dr. A.M. Rawani, Director, National Institute of Technology, Raipur. Welcome, Rawani, sir. Welcome to the 18th World Education Summit. Looking forward for your welcome deliberations to this higher education conclave. And I would like to welcome Professor Dr. C. Krishna Mohan, Professor CSC, Professor Computer Science Engineering, Indian Institute of Technology, Hyderabad. Welcome, Krishna, sir. Welcome to the 18th World Education Summit.
Thank you.
And we have also Dr. SS Mantha. He will join within short span of time, and he is the former chairman AICTE and Chancellor KL University, Guntur. So I will hand over this session to Dr. Sarabjot sir to take this session and moderate this session, and we are looking forward for the wonderful deliberation from each panelist. And I request Sarabjot sir to give them the equal opportunities in terms of the time and to share their deliberations and their best practices across the higher education. Over to you, Sarabjot.
Of course. Thank you, Abhishek. And thank you for this opportunity to interact with these very esteemed panelists here. When I think about higher education and what's happening in it right now, especially given COVID-19, I see that COVID-19 has done to education what demonetization did to money, in that, it's forcing all the transactions to happen online, and a lot of data is being collected. At the same time, if we actually think about the new education policy of the government, I kind of see a lot of parallels with blockchain technology, another emerging technology, in that just as blockchain is impacting financial institutions by taking over that central control that banks have had on money, I think the new education policy in some ways is taking away the control that we had on students throughout their degree program and giving that flexibility to students to actually take ownership of their own learning. So in many ways, we are seeing a very disruptive time, I think, in education. And, of course, today we are focusing on two other disruptive technologies, namely, RPA and artificial intelligence, and how it has an impact or could have an impact on higher education. So the first question I'd like to pose to Dr. Krishna Mohan is, how do you see RPA and AI making an impact in higher education, from your experience?
Yeah, thank you, Professor. So, yeah, it's like, there's tremendous impact on the education sector, if I have to say in one word, one sentence. Okay. So, because of the changes that is happening, okay, especially when you talk about transformation of classes, okay, or the curriculum designing, or you take in terms of the grading for betterment or automation point of view, and easy implementation of some administrative tasks, okay, and also like how we can predict the students' performance, okay, and their based on their behavioral changes and so on, okay. And also there are some gaps, okay, in teaching techniques, okay, with which we can really fill the gap using this AI, okay. And also the experimental learning for students through virtual reality and games and so on, okay. And also the important thing is the collaborative learning, okay, for multiple students. Typical classrooms, you can see that typical classrooms, okay, so the traditional classroom is that the teacher is there, and students sit, and then one way generally once in a while some interaction can happen. But collaborative learning is something which students, I'm sure they would enjoy, okay. That's where, and with which, I mean, using in collaborative learning classrooms also, like the concept of smart classrooms and so on, okay, using the IoT, or any kind of technology, okay. So we can really transform the education, okay, in terms of the whole thing actually, okay. So slowly, like the personalization of education, which is very important, okay. And because of the heavy work on the teachers and other things, okay, so these things can be taken over by the AI, and then it will help, okay, to in doing better, okay. So if you have to, overall, these are my important points, okay, on various things, okay, which where AI can make the future better, okay. So basically, like that whole things are going to change. That teacher is going to be the facilitator, okay, in the future, okay, where with the aid of AI technology. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. And Professor Rawani, if you could add to that, in your view, how the impacts of automation and AI is having on education within your institution, for example, even given some examples.
Yeah. Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank the World Education Summit for giving me the opportunity to be the part of this learned professors in this panel. And as far as the use of technology is concerned, as rightly pointed out by Professor Singh, that we are very used to nowadays of using the technology in all kind of transactions when we are buying something from the, you can say, e-market and all. So many things are going on, and we are making the payment and all. But if I see the use of technology in education sector, that is not also a very old, very new concept. Since the last 1 decade, if I believe, we are using the technology. Now the question comes of using AI, particularly in a new technologies in education sector. Let me divide the education system, higher education system or any education system. I can divide it in, you can say, 3 parts, as any system has 3 portions of any system. First is the input, second is the process, and third is the output. When I say input, means in case of the education system, the potential students are there, they look for the institutes, advertisement appear, they search for the strength of the institute, they apply for the admission process, certain examination, entrance examination may be there, and then the students join the particular institute. That is, they become the part of the institute. That is the input process in the education system. Then the process part, the teaching is there, maybe theory lectures are there, practicals are there, then the teaching is there, then the you can say the evaluation part is done, the degree is awarded, and the placement of the student, if possible, that is done with the help of the, you can say, the institute where the student has taken admission. And in addition to that, one more part is there, is the whole governance or administration of the institute for handling all this, you can say, curriculum activities and handling the students in the institute and all. So if all these 3 aspects, input, process, and output part, if we see, the technology is helping us a great. If I talk about the input part, where the, you can say, admission of the student is concerned, course registration is there, whether it is a shortlisting of the students are concerned, enrollment of the students is concerned, there the technology is helping us a lot. And many of the institutes in India, even they are using the technology in this, they already started using this. The eligibility criteria of the students, whether they are eligible for a particular program or not, that is also checked using this. And when they attend the classes, their attendance management, taking of the attendance, that can be used using the technologies. As far as the administration of the institute is concerned, whether it is a human resource management is there, preparation of the payroll is concerned, decision making is there, and all that, again, the technology plays a vital role. Nowadays, the using ERP in educational institute is gradually becoming very popular. But as far as the, you can say, the process part is concerned, where imparting of the education is concerned, we are little lagging in that part. We are not very used to that. Some of the people, those who don't belong to the education institute, may say that the education institutes are very lethargic. They are not used to, you can say, adopting the technology, because all other sectors, whether it's the banking, whether it is railway, whether any other, you can say, shopping platform, all they have adopted the technology to the greater extent. But the education institutes are not adopting with that speed. I disagree with that. The education institutes are lethargic. There are certain problems that because of that they are not easily, you can say, adopting the technology. We'll come to that later on. But let me first focus that how the AI can help the education institute. What are the, you can say, the potential areas? The technology has revolutionized the, you can say, the method of teaching learning. Now the students not only learn what they want to learn, but they can learn by the method how they want to learn. So it's not the content, but it's the methodology of giving the knowledge is important. Knowledge is available everywhere. Now we have a lot of many sources available on the internet. It is very easily available to the students. So in fact, the students simply for the sake of getting that particular bookish knowledge, they are not interested to attend the classes. They want to develop their skill in that. So knowledge and skill, these 2 parts are there. So knowledge is everywhere. The problem is of providing the necessary skill to the students using these technologies. Traditional method of imparting knowledge is transformed Nowadays, simulation and augmented reality, all that has, these tools are available which can be utilized. AI-based question boards can be there. Now the students are more demanding. They want their query should be responded immediately. And for that, the technology can be best utilized. Question boards may be there. One more aspect is there is the personalized learning. In every aspect, whether you are buying some product on the internet using certain websites, when you search for certain things, definitely the pop-ups starts coming up where they will give you various hints based on advertisements come there. Those are things which are very much personalized. We are always now focusing on the customized things and personalized things. The same is true in case of the education also. In education sector, we have to think of providing the personalized education to the students, considering their, you can say, the pace of learning. As far as their pace of learning is concerned, little care has been taken where in case of the, you can say, choice-based credit system, where we say that the fast learner can take up more credits and slow learner can take the less number of credits as per their choice, and all these are there. But we are not using very much the technology in that part. Now the day is there where we should think of using the technology. We should track the learning path of the students, and based on that, we can provide the personalized learning to all that. Virtual classroom concept is not a very new. We all know that very various platforms are there, and because of the COVID-19, all that has become nowadays in practice. But virtual classroom, now the question comes of the virtual teacher as well. This is a matter of debate. We have to think about that. We talk about the medium of instruction. Many times we say that the medium of instruction is English, Hindi, or any other language. I say that the future is where we should say that the medium of instruction is technology. We should deliver using technology. So why not the medium of instruction is technology? Thank you.
Very interesting thoughts, Professor Rawani. And I think, both of you touched upon a number of things that I think in physical spaces are more difficult, right, to implement things like, the peer-to-peer assessment systems that we could introduce because technology is there. And I personally feel that students learn a lot more when they teach, right? In fact, I would say for myself, when I started teaching, I actually started learning concepts that I thought I knew. And, through technology, if we can get students to be helping each other, like you said, collaborative learning environments where there are question boards. And, I think Dr. Krishna Mohan also mentioned the fact that the changing role of the teacher, where they become more like mentors rather than, the source of all knowledge. Now, obviously, with all of these technologies coming in, flipped classrooms becoming part of our general routine now, because of, in some cases, even connectivity issues that students had. We've had a very different environment for the last year, right? And I think some institutions have struggled more than others to keep their students engaged during this time period. Do you think we are going to lose all of this once students come back into, the environment that we are used to, the campus environment? Or are there things that we can continue to do that we have learned over this last year that technology will help us in achieving? Professor Rawani, would you like to start with that?
Yeah, sure. Actually, during the past 1 year, the experience as far as the COVID is concerned was not a very good experience. But as far as the technology adoption is concerned, is what a good experience. Rather, I should say that it is an opportunity. So all of us have tried to encash that opportunity. We have learned a lot. Teachers have learned how to deliver the lecture on such, you can say, the platforms. Students have also learned how they can understand the things on this media. But there are certain things which the students are missing. What we are getting the feedbacks from the students, that they are missing their peers, they are missing the feedback from the peers, what they learn when they are physically present in an educational institutes, that they are missing. The learning any educational institute is not merely the classroom teaching. There are many more things are there. We say that the co-curricular activities, extracurricular activities, these are all missing. So students per se, they are learning as far as the subject knowledge is concerned. Rather, I should say whether they are learning or not, that is still questionable. They are getting
Yes.
knowledge. That is true.
Right.
So another part is that the co-curricular and extracurricular activities all are missing. So students always, I'm getting various feedback from the students. They are very curious when this institute will be open, and they want to come back to the institute in the physical mode and attend the classes physically as they used to do earlier. But yes, because of the current situation, that is not feasible to a greater extent. You can say we may have to go for the blended kind of learning where some of the parts of the syllabus can be covered in online mode as we used to do, and some of the part may be covered in, you can say, offline mode as the students wish. But again, there is a great part of the whole process. First is the lecture delivery, learning part. Another part in that is the experimental part, particularly when we talk about the technical education institute like ours, engineering institute, science institutes. Though virtual labs are there, that is in, you can say, a lot of efforts have been put in by the ministry, and virtual labs are existing there, but the students don't get much feel of that, and the connectivity, network access, all these are the problems which we have because the students are from the remote places. They don't have the continuous availability of the internet access and all. One more part, which is the last part of the whole this scenario, is the assessment part. Assessment again, proctoring of the students during the examination in online mode is again a difficult task. Though we are using various modes of assessment, is saying that is a continuous assessment, so only examination is not one part of the assessment. We are giving them in NIT Raipur various projects, term projects. We are taking the voice examination also, so that we can judge and assess the student to what extent they have understood the subjects, and the, you can say, the whole assessment is done based on that. But that kind of flavor we don't have as we were having in case of the offline mode. So the when the situation becomes normal, I think probably they would like to come back to the institute. But it's my personal view that now whatever we have learned during the last 1 year, we should now become conversant with these technology and try to utilize the technology, because that is the need of the hour. Because nobody should blame, as I said in the beginning as well, that the education institutes are not adopting to the technology. We are ready, provided all stakeholders change their mindset.
Right. Very good point. And I think that's a very important point that you just made, that, like I compared COVID for education with demonetization for money. After the effects of demonetization, everybody went back to their old ways of using cash, and there was the peak and then reduction. I hope that education institutions will not go the same route, and we will hopefully use a lot of the learnings that we have from this period. So thank you for that. Dr. Mantha, Professor Mantha, welcome to the panel. We had just been talking about, how RPA and artificial intelligence in particular can impact the education system. And I would love to get your views on this as well, especially how your institution is using these technologies.
Yeah, good morning. I am audible, I believe.
Yes,
right?
you are. Yes, yes.
Yeah, thank you. Unfortunately, there has been some power failure around this place, so that's the reason it's been a little delayed in joining the show. Now, as far as the AI and automation and so on are concerned, there is absolutely a very big role for automation. I mean, the previous speaker was speaking about the conduct of examinations and the initiatives in within education to reach education online and things like that. But I believe automation has a big role to play, whether it's the software industry, you have business process automation, you have industrial automation, you have control and automation, and of course you also have robotic process automation, which is a subject of very great interest in the current times. Now, as far as AI automation and robotics will bring about major changes in markets. However, there are several specific skills that are required in you know making this happen. Now, for example, in the area of software testing, automation can be implemented to save cost and time. And most of the time, it's also used in regression testing, large scale testing. And in all those places, RPA is the way to go. Now, most of the engineering institutions, most of the technical institutions, they lay a great stress on this. And for example, RPA and AI, they are among the technical solutions that are there available in global business space, being cloud, mobile applications development, IoT, or whatever you refer to. As a result of the shift towards the digital technology that we have today, you know, innovation in the Indian IT markets, I believe several lakhs of jobs will be expected to be created in the years to come. Now, there are several areas of interest which we must look at and the engineering institutions must look at in terms of providing employment in this space. For example, whether it's online shopping that we normally do on the internet, or maybe online credit card application processing, or in all these places, RPA plays a very important role in the back end, ensuring that the digital experience that is required, and that obviously will have to be smooth if these have to succeed. For example, banking and financial services is a great place, for automation to be, which has manifested itself, and the vendor data is to be read, it has to be validated, and transactions, to be enabled. The customer services that we are interested in, whether any of these areas, even the KYC, the information related to customers is validated by the RPA system. So therefore, a lot of traction will be available in automation, in AI, in robotic process automation, and so on. The other areas, of course, you have healthcare. There are several healthcare sectors where registrations of patient appointments, or managing claims of insurance, all these are where RPA tools are used. Then, of course, the retail industry is something that we have, where, for instance, online shopping, which I have referred to, they make use of RPA to perform various tasks as payment processing, inventory management, customer service, etc. So finally, the future for RPA and automation and AI is something that will grow in times to come. And India has basically two advantages as I look at this problem. It has both the workforce and the innovative capabilities which are required for RPA implementation. Now, technically, it can also be a global hub for RPA. With soaring demand for technology professionals, educational sector must deliver, as we all know. And some of the institutions, some of the universities are already doing it, but probably there is a lot of push that is required from the application side, which is anyway happening today. And therefore, the necessary talents required for the domain will be available in time to come. Of course, whether it's the learning, I mean, in part of education, whether it's learning management systems that are in use, which use a whole lot of data analytics and AI to create a personalized learning experience. I mean, the application areas are tremendous, are many in number, and of course the complete online examination system where whether it's proctored or not proctored, they all use these tools, and therefore my understanding is that automation has a great future in times to come. Of
Great,
course,
thank you.
educational institutions and edtech companies have been working towards designing these programs, and I suppose the future will see much more happening in that space. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So, I mean, you bring an interesting point that a lot of incorporation of new syllabus, right? And this is a very dynamic space, AI and automation, and how institutions build that into the curriculum is an important aspect. I mean, from the actual perspective of using RPA and AI within the delivery of education, so the adoption not by our students of the technology, but actually its use within the learning process is what I'd like to move on to, right? So we have now, as Professor Rawani was talking about, we've learned a lot in the last year, right? And maybe, as people say, there's some truth to the fact that the education institutions were a little bit in slumber and were jerked into action because of COVID, right? When we suddenly found that our students can't come to us, we had to change our ways of teaching. And while MOOCs were already having an impact and students were getting used to that kind of content that was recorded being given to them, we all understand that just recording lectures is a very small part of the learning process, right? And so, what I was discussing with Professor Rawani was the fact that, how can we take the learnings from that year that we have spent now with COVID, when students have been away, and build that into practice even when they come back onto campus, right? Because, again, a very, important point that Professor Rawani brought up was that when students were away from us, not every student had equal opportunities, right? Because of internet connectivity and so on. And so some of the ideas that I think our institutions tried to implement worked well for some students, but not for the others. But when students come back on campus and they have good internet connectivity, should we be giving up on everything that has been learned in that last year? And, Dr. Krishna, Mohan, if you want to, tell us a little bit about what you are planning in your institution to say, some good practices that we have brought up. How are we going to integrate it into, as Professor Rawani said, this blended learning environment that we would be possibly creating for students?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, and also I think Dr. Rawani also mentioned about the learning is, it's not just, imparting the subject knowledge. It is the, overall, personality, development of the student. That's what I look at it as learning. Okay. So apart from the, subject knowledge, okay, there are many things they can learn being in the system and interacting with outside world and so on. Okay. So mix of both are very important. Okay. You can't, and nothing can replace a teacher. Okay. So, you need to have a teacher, and with the aid of the technology, okay, we should move forward. Because, so as I told earlier, the role of a teacher, okay, is going to be different from the traditional, ways, okay, with the technology. And it's important that we can't be, away from the technology. We are forced to. And because of the COVID situation or whatever it is, like we are, with the technology, we have to be with technology, using technology, but we should know like how much to use, how much not to use. Okay, because it also has its own, positives, negatives. Okay, so that way, like if you take even cell phone, mobile phone, okay, it has both advantages and disadvantages. So we should know, like we have to, as a teachers, we should tell the students, like how much to use the technology and where the human interaction is very much important. Okay. So as you all know, like we have been last after COVID, we have been interacting through online, but nothing like that personal interaction one can one used to, like there are much more than just learn. I mean the subject knowledge or anything. You understand the person very well. That's where, and you learn. You see the person's expressions. You see the person's behavior. That's where the AI can come into picture. Okay, because AI can help. Because the point here, whole discussion is about the not only the technology of the other things, but also technology which with AI is used. Okay,
Right.
how it is going to help the education sector. Okay, and you can see that there are so many the startups which are working on AI for education. So that means there is so much potential. Okay, and as I told in the beginning of my this one, personalization, and there are many aspects of future. I mentioned the future, how it is going to be the things like we have to come up with the some collaborative classrooms, collaborative learning. Okay, so and then predicting the student performance, which can help the teacher better. Okay, because the teacher has its own limitations. Okay, but with the help of the technology, teacher can better judge the performance of the students, and also because there is a gap in teaching techniques. Okay, so the technology can help. Okay, and of course there are so much of the virtual reality and games through which students can learn. Okay, and also it helps in in even the grading point of view. Okay, the AI can help the teacher in because sometimes we may have some biases towards some students or some places, but where AI will not be like that. Okay, AI is a machine which learns from the whatever data you give. So it will be much more accurate in certain aspects. Okay, so and so that it will help the teacher in taking better decisions.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So let's take a couple of questions from the audience. One question here is, how do we get students to learn experiential learning through the adoption of new technologies? I know you have mentioned, virtual reality and augmented reality as ways, and simulation. Are there, any best practices that you can point to in that direction? One of the interesting, situations that we have, in the first year of our engineering program at BML Munjal University, we have a program called the Joy of Engineering, right? Because we want our students to feel the joy of what they're learning rather than just seeing it as a drudgery of having to learn something to get a degree. And that's a very hands-on program, right? I mean, students are building drones or building, the Raspberry Pi based applications and so on. So, I mean, that kind of experiential, immersive learning, are there technologies in your view that have allowed or matured us to that extent that they would allow that to happen online, and maybe even improve on what we do offline as a result of use of technology? Dr. Krishna, Mohan, would you like to start with that one?
I think others can pitch in, because I just spoke about this.
Okay. Sure. Professor Rawani, what are your views on that?
Yeah. When the question comes of experimental learning, the students are very much used to attend the classes, perform the experiments in laboratories and all. And when we think about using technology in experimental learning, the great hurdle is the mindset. is the development of the culture, because we don't have at present that kind of culture. So we always think of that, I cannot learn, I cannot experiment unless I perform something on the experimental setup. So that kind of, you can say there is a need of changing mindset. New technologies are there, augmented reality, virtual reality, these are the things which are making the learning fun. As you said that you have the, you can say in your starting some syllabus where a student should enjoy the learning. So this virtual reality and augmented reality is a kind of tools which are providing, you can say, enjoyment to the students at the time of learning. So this can be a medium where the students can enjoy and learn as well. But yes, definitely, the great hurdle in all this is the infrastructure problem, and secondly, the mindset, adoption of that, because we are not used to it. Both teacher and students. Teacher should also understand that with this students can learn, they can make the students learn, and students should also understand that yeah, this is the way how they can learn in a better way along with the enjoyment.
Yeah, that's a very good point. That actually, as we see these new technologies come in, nobody is talking about the poor teacher, right? Who has to adapt to these new technologies and change their own way of interaction. And we'll come to that a little later. So thank you for that. Dr. Mantha, I see you're having lots of problems with connectivity here, but while we have you here, I thought I would actually ask you as to, in your experience with experiential learning, what are the new technologies that can be adopted to make the learning of, for students more experiential in nature?
Oh, there are several things that can be done on experiential learning. In fact, several universities have implemented, including mine, there's something called as the brand factory or the fabrication fab lab, where several you need several equipment. I mean, to right from the time that one designs and goes through the process and creates smaller components, assembles them, and creates a product. And tests it out, and so on. So several universities are trying that experiment where they provide all the facilities from the student's perspective, and they are given teams and ideas based on different teams, and the students are expected to actually go through the different ideas and come out with solutions for small bits of requirements from.
Yeah, sorry. So there is another question here about assessments. And one of the people in the audience are saying assessment is a major concern in this digital era. How can we tackle it? Dr. Krishna Mohan, would you like to take that one? Dr. Mohan, you're on mute. Professor Rawani, would you like to jump in on your experience with, assessment?
Yeah. For the assessment part, using technology, artificial intelligence can be used for the evaluation process with the efficiency. Those technologies are in place. We can think of using those technologies for the, you can say, objective types of question papers, subjective type of question papers, all this can be done. But if we particularly, the question from the audience is there that in the present scenario, how we can handle that. So if we want to use the AI for using that may require some kind of infrastructure, internet connectivity and all. But if we don't want to use that, then as I said, that as we are doing in our own institute, that we are using a model of the continuous assessment. continuous assessment were earlier also it was there in our institute. We used to take the, you can say, the mid-semester examination and all. So we have replaced those kind of things, and now we have the projects where the students can learn from the various sources available on the internet, or through our access to our e-resources of our library. They have been provided the access to them. So from there they can learn, they can submit the reports, and then the VAWA can be arranged. So that becomes one component of the assessment. Another component of assessment may be using, you can say, the direct dialogue with the students, question answering, VAWA wise examination. That can be second part of assessment. Third may be a kind of assignment. Assignment, when I say, is not merely what is given in the books, they simply copy paste, but that some question should be there which requires their personal thinking, creativity should be there in the question. Teacher has to put a labor in that in designing such kind of questions. If such kind of questions are there, is a kind of open book kind of system where the students can't get the answer anywhere. It's not available on the internet. It's not available in any of the books. They have to learn first those things, then apply the learned knowledge in a particular situation. Based on that, certain questions can set. So all these components can be included, and that becomes in totality the assessment for the students. Or otherwise, if you want to use the technology using AI, that can be the future. We can think of using that, and we should think and proceed in that direction, I believe. Yes, thank you.
That's a very interesting point you're making, Professor Rawani. And in fact, in my experience, even giving access to the internet to the students while they're doing their tests is actually a real test of whether they've really understood what you were telling them, because the internet is full of noise. So students who are very callous with their use of the internet can all give the wrong answer, right, as a result. But that's very interesting. And I guess that puts the onus again on teachers, that they have to come up with these very applied questions, right, where you have to use your brain power. And I think that's a requirement for the future. Dr. Krishna Mohan, are you connected again? Okay, great. So the question from the audience was, assessment is a major concern in this digital era. How can we tackle it? Can you tell us a little bit about the experiences at your institution with regard to this?
Yeah, as everybody's experience says that there is nothing like a foolproof system. Okay, as of now. Okay. So I think all the stakeholders involved, including government, okay, should push towards this in making it better. Okay, the assessment point of view, how to make it better, and because the problem is that even we are facing some difficulties with students doing all kinds of indulging into all kinds of this one. So having said that, the as I told earlier, teachers should supplement AI and assist students who are struggling, provide human interaction and also hands-on experience for students. Okay, so that they become better, in the process of learning. Okay, they become better. Okay. So and definitely, we have to move forward, but at the same time with caution, like what to be used and what not to be used. Okay, so that call is very important, because we can't be using technology for everything. Okay, where it has to be used, we should use it with available technology. And as I mentioned, with all these, whatever, having said all these things, like other speakers have mentioned, the important point is like basic infrastructure which needs to be developed for all this. Okay, I think slowly, governments are taking decisions, and also the organizations are taking the steps to improve the things. But still, these are the bottlenecks. Okay. For the many students, especially rural areas. Imagine we ourselves are struggling sitting in cities like Hyderabad, Chennai, Bangalore. We ourselves are facing a lot of difficulties with network issues and the other kinds of issues. So that is going to hamper our progress. So if that is taken care, I think much more things can be done in the future. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Mohan. One of the things that, in fact, Dr. Krishna Mohan had mentioned in part of his answer earlier was the fact that the relationship of the teacher with the student when they are face to face and in an environment, a physical environment, is much better. On the flip side, are there things where automation can actually improve the bond between the teacher and the student in your experience? Professor Rawani, if you want to take that.
Yeah, having a proper bond between the students and teacher is very much essential. There is no you can say second opinion about this. Many times the students say that I don't like this subject. When we go into the depth, why they don't like the subject, the reason might be the subject teacher is not good. It's not the question of the subject content. They are not very much comfortable with the subject teacher, and that's why they are not good. When they say that I don't like the subject, and when I change the subject teacher, they start liking the subject. So it's not the content, it's the one who is delivering the lecture that is more important. The bond is very much important between the students and teacher. Using technology, this bond can be further improved. The reason is that the students, in case of the use of technology, students are not in, you can say, the passive role. They are in active role. They are interacting with the faculty. Sometimes the shy student who are not very much comfortable, they think that their colleague students, what they think about them. But when the question comes of, you can say, using the technology, they are more open and they feel more friendly because they don't have the physical touch with the students, and that's why physical touch with the teacher, and that's why they become more active in that case. And the role of the teacher, as pointed out by my earlier speaker also, the role of the teacher also changes. The role of teacher is not merely the lecture delivery, but not merely whatever content is there he has to deliver, but here in this case the role of the teacher will be a facilitator. If he is a facilitator, definitely the bond will be more strong bond. And students are nowadays more technology savvy. They want everything in technological platform that we can understand very well, whether it is a shopping, whether it is a banking, whether it is a ticket booking, or whatever. We particularly at this age may not like, sometimes may not be that much comfortable, but the students are more comfortable. Rather, they always prefer to use the technology. So when they are using technology, which is their choice, so definitely the other stakeholder who is the teacher, definitely when the choice matches, the test matches, the bond will definitely improve. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Dr. Krishna Mohan, you mentioned the fact that use of technology takes away a little bit from that relationship. Are there some positives to the technology use also, like Professor Rawani was suggesting, that can actually help that bond becoming stronger, in fact, in some ways?
Yeah, if you have to ask me some positives about this whole thing, like in fact, in terms of the work, especially in computer science, where we don't need to be physically present. Okay, so we are able to connect to servers. Students are, in fact, I'm having the meetings more often than what I used to do physically. To be very frank, because now I call them whenever I want, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, come for join and do it. In fact, that way, like the progress is very good compared to what offline progress. If I see all my students, no travel or no other diversions, just focus on the. But this cannot go in the long run. It may not be good for the mental health of the students. Okay, and where it can hamper the because I see school children and some of the IIT students suffering, having all kinds of mental health related issues. Okay, So I think we have to have a mix of both, okay, so that we become better. Okay, as Professor Rawani mentioned, okay, technology is very important. We cannot be like without technology. And of course, see, in India the problem is like we are slow in because of our culture, or many people are below poverty line, where they may not feel the necessity of including opening bank account and things like that. Now things are changing. So the change is slow. That's all I can say compared to any other countries. Things are slow. And the other important thing is the AI can bring one important thing is that it would bring the all educational institutions and the higher education closer to the industry. Okay, so that will be very good thing I see in the future, because if you talk about Germany, okay, most of the work they do, okay, it is directly translated to the technology and society thing, okay, where that is still not happening so much like other countries. It is not, we are not there. I'm sure with the use of AI, I think it will also take us closer to the industry. And so that, because once you have these skills, okay, we know, like, okay, we are closer to the industry. We are no more like only teaching something. And I think that is another change I see that future is going to, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Thank you. So, the way I see it is, I think with digital technologies, yes, of course, we had a very personal service that we got from the corner store, the little kirana shop that we went to. But if we look at Amazon, the depth to which they know us is kind of almost scary, right? And with students being online using a lot of technology where we can actually track student progress, how much they're engaging with different content, how they're interacting with students, asking questions, what's the quality of answer they're giving each other. All of this gives us a very rich data set that can help us understand our students better. And hopefully, if we can create systems that allow teachers to then utilize that depth of understanding of the student to actually impart that personalized learning that both of you were mentioning earlier, I think that's a huge opportunity for us. And I hope that we will progress towards that. And even when we get into the campus, maybe some of the drudgery, the parts that are not that interesting of the teaching job can be automated, and AI can help in actually allowing us to teach at different wavelengths, right? Where we sitting in a physical classroom, we always have to dumb down to some extent, or focus on the average student, which means the weaker student may suffer a little bit, and the very intelligent students may also not be as attentive because they're getting bored. I think those are some of the ways in which technology can hopefully help us. And from the sounds of it, I think the future is bright. What you're talking about, what you're doing in your institutions, I think does suggest that I think academia in general is taking on the challenge of adopting all of these technologies and new technologies. If there are any wrapping up comments that you would like to make, Professor Rawani, as a wrap up of the subject before we close.
Yeah. The question comes of the adoption of the technology. So we are in the era of the Industry 4.0, and it's now high time that the education institute should also think of proceed in the same direction, the adoption of technology. There is no alternate to it. We have to adopt it. But yes, as I mentioned, that the couple of problems are there. Digital infrastructure is a great issue. Internet connectivity of the students and all other stakeholders is a great issue. Investment by the educational institutes and the government is again an issue. But we have to move forward in that direction, and that is possible only when all stakeholders, educational institute on one hand and the government, on the other hand, they move together and should derive a strategy so that they should change the mindset of all stakeholders. The mindset is very much important. Only mindset change is necessary. So change management is very much essential here, because we have to move from complete offline mode to you can say blended kind of scenario, or more kind of online or use of technology scenario. So at the end, I should say that the future of automation in education is basically re-engineering higher educational institutes framework. We have to re-engineer the higher educational institutes framework. Then only it is possible to adopt the technology, and that is very much essential for not only for the survival of any education institute, for the growth of the education institutes as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Rawani. And any last comments, Dr. Krishna Mohan?
Yeah, at the end, I can say that, future, like teachers will supplement AI lessons, assist students, okay, and they provide human interaction and hands-on experience for students. Use of this AI technology, okay. So for the benefit of the society. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. So I guess to conclude, we can say that automation, RPA specifically, and AI are here to stay in education, and we are all ready for the challenge. And at the same time, I think just like doctors, academics still remain very relevant to the learning journey of students, and I think always will. Would be a conclusion that I would draw from all your comments. So thank you very much, and I really enjoyed the interaction with both of you, and I shall pass it back to Abhishek. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sarabjot sir. Thank you for wonderful this session and wrapping on the time. And I thanks Dr. A.M. Rawani, Director NIT Raipur, for giving us wonderful time, and Dr. C. Krishna Mohan. And this is the small token of appreciation from the World Education Summit and Digital Learning Elets Technomedia. Speaker certificate is presented to the Professor Dr. C. Krishna Mohan, Professor IIT Hyderabad.
Thank you.
To Dr. S.S. Mantha, former Chairman AICTE and Chancellor KL University. So, and Dr. Sarabjot sir also certificate is here. Dr. Sarabjot Singh Anand, Director, School of Engineering and Technology, BML, Munjal University, Gurugram. So I thanks all my esteemed speakers for giving us their precious time. So there is some more questions from the audience. I will send you on the mail. So I just request all my audience, if you have any other question, you can directly follow all our speakers on their social handle as well. They are very much active on their social handle. You can take it offline as well. And if you have any other question, we will help you. You just drop it. Your questions at education@digitallearning.in. We will directly mail to our speakers. If they revert, we will directly come back to you. Thank you, Krishna Mohan sir. Thank you for giving your precious time. Thank you, Anand sir. Thank you very much. Thank you, Rawani sir. Thank you for giving your time.
Nice meeting, Professor Rawani. Nice meeting, Professor Sarabjot Singh. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.